Welcome back to the stars, everybody. Welcome back to Starfield. Today we're going to be taking a look at the old 1911, the gun that is still around for whatever reason in this world that's supposed to be set 300 years in the future. I guess the 1911 goes on for 400 years of service or something like that. Anyway, we got a classic 1911 in Starfield, which I absolutely adore. I think it's really cool that they put this gun in the game. They could have picked any old Earth pistol, and honestly, you could have picked some other weird ones too to put in here, like a Luger or something. I think that would have been a really cool option too, but I do like that they picked the 1911. And I do think it's pretty funny that you can go, all throughout the stars, throughout all these technologically advanced things, and when in doubt, just pull out your good old space 1911 and gun somebody down. So let's talk about it, the pros and cons to it, what its base stats are, and should you be using it, as well as a modded version that I would recommend to you. So for the base stats in the 1911, this one does 28 damage per hit, which is decent for a handgun. It is a semi-automatic handgun, so it has fast follow-up shots, and the damage is perfectly fine. It's one of two pistols that uses the 45 ACP. It's this and the 2311, of course. That would be using that, and it is kind of hard to find this ammo. That will be talked about in the pros and cons. This one holds 9 rounds in it, which is a little bit odd, since you just load the whole thing. I guess they're just counting the +1 in the chamber, but whatever, it doesn't matter. 9 rounds in it, which is pretty decent. Has a good rate of fire at 67, so you can spam this actually pretty quick. It has 20 meters of effective range, which should really be converted to yards if you're going to use an American pistol. But 20 yards of effective range then, and that's about the same as all the other handguns besides one of them. This one has decent accuracy, but not the highest like most handguns in this game, and this one barely weighs anything, weighing about 1.1. So you can hold a lot of 1911s, assuming you can find a decent amount of them. For general pros of the 1911, this one does pretty decent damage per shot. That is a good bonus about this. It also does pretty good damage per second. For cons, I would say that there are two major cons with this. One is that the ammo can be difficult to find. Vendors tend to not have a whole lot of it. When they do have it, it's kind of expensive. I mean, the plus to this is that it is only shared with 2 weapons, which is the only old Earth gun that does actually share ammo with anything else, interestingly enough. Although that does mean you're going to have competition with this weapon and the 2311, because any of the old Earth guns just don't. You can use the AK for as long as you have bullets with it, and there's no other gun that can really compete with it, because there's no other gun that's using its ammo type, at least if you're just going off of ammo to ammo, not all stats and everything. The other major con to this, like a lot of the old Earth weapons, is that they don't have a whole lot of mods, which I find particularly weird now that I think about it with the AK and with the 1911, because you can mod the heck out of an AK and a 1911 in any other game that they are in. There is usually like the most mods for these type of weapons, because there's the most mods for these weapons in real life, so it seems kind of weird that these would have the least amount, but maybe the mods didn't survive even though the guns did. In my previous tier list, I put the 1911, I think, into A or B tier, and it should probably really be in the B tier. It's a decent handgun that does everything that you would want it to do, so it has slightly above average stats for a handgun, which is good, and specializing into handguns is really easy. You can do this very early on. But the ammo does kind of drag it down a little bit to where you're not going to be able to use this super often unless you stock up on a ton of bullets and just don't use it very often, and then of course you could have millions of rounds. So I think B tier is fair for it. It's an above average handgun that does everything pretty well, especially by the time that you get it. Now for a fully modded version, there is a couple different options that you have for mods. Starting out with the muzzle, I would recommend a suppressor on this pistol. You can also go with the short suppressor, both of these are good. If you're running the stealth stat, this is just a straight bonus to your damage, and it makes it so you can sneak around with this, which is pretty cool. The other option is a compensator, which if you're not going stealth, then that is better than nothing, and I would recommend it. But if you are going stealth, suppressor or short suppressor is just a better option. For the grip, I would just recommend the tactical grip. This is just a straight upgrade to the weapon. Makes the weapon is lighter, makes it so you have better stability, makes it so you can ADS faster. So all of that, big pro. Then for a magazine and battery, you only have 2 options. You either have the large magazine or the armor-piercing rounds. Both of these are pretty decent, and I'd recommend either one. Try both and see which one you like. Armor-piercing rounds gets you more consistent damage towards enemies, but having only 9 rounds in the gun is sometimes not enough for multiple enemies, because you're probably not going to be killing with one shot unless you do a sneak crit or something. So having a larger magazine to take this up to 15 is pretty decent. I stuck with the armor-piercing rounds in this one, but larger mag's pretty good too. And then we have an internal where we have the standard options. Hair trigger, high powered, or high velocity. Hair trigger makes so you can shoot faster. I don't think that one's super necessary with the 1911, but it's not a bad option if you want to take it, because the 1911 already has a decent rate of fire. High-powered is pretty good, and that's the one I went with just to get more damage out of each shot. That one's just nice overall, and high velocity gets you longer range. Also can be good, pick whichever one you would like. Now, even with all of these added onto the 1911, it doesn't feel that much crazier than just a standard 1911. So modded out 1911, I would also probably still keep in the B tier. It's a decent handgun that still does pretty well. It is competing with the XM2311, which I would say is probably the better of the two pistols. We'll talk about that one day when we do get to that pistol. But the Old Earth pistol, I would say, is B tier. It's perfectly fine. Now, we still have two other pistols to talk about, and those being the unique versions of the 1911 that you can get throughout the game. One of these is called Sir Livingstone's pistol. This one is obtained from having a trait at the very start of the game. You have to pick the Kid Stuff trait. This will allow you to do a quest, and this is one of the rewards that you can get from it. So you can get this one pretty early on. And just like some of these weapons, this one actually doesn't have any sort of unique effect on it. It doesn't have like bashing or fire or electricity or anything. It's just in name alone. But it does have two modifications. It has a large magazine and high velocity already put on this. That's pretty good. That's pretty decent, especially with how early you can get this. It's probably going to be your first 1911 if you want to do this right away. And I would consider this just a straight bonus. It's nothing crazy. You're probably going to replace this once you get a 1911 with some sort of effect on it, assuming you are going to be using this pistol. But until then, it can be pretty good, and it will be better than just a standard 1911 because it has some mods on it, so that's pretty cool. The other unique 1911 is called the Vampire's Sidearm, which is a pretty interesting name for a pistol. It's also kind of a weird one to get because you do need to do part of the UC Vanguard quest, if not all of the UC Vanguard quest, and then get to the 7th Division, 7th Precinct, whatever the heck it's considered, all the way at the basement. And it is behind a locked door. So you have to get through the locked door and then you can get it, which I think you need to have 2 or 3 perks into security because it is an expert lock. Once you get this though, it does have one unique effect on it, and it does actually come fully modded out, which is pretty cool. You also need to steal this weapon, so if you get caught with it, it can be taken away. However, you can clean this by selling it to a trade authority merchant and then buying it back in the buyback section. You don't actually even have to pay any extra money for it. You can just get it back and then it won't be taken away from you. So be sure to do that. The Vampire Sidearm comes with 3 mods already attached to it. It has a hair trigger, a large magazine, and a short suppressor on it. That's all pretty good. That's a pretty decent pistol right there. I like all of those mods. You just throw a tag grip on here and it will be like complete. It has the Med Thief effect on it, which makes it so anytime that you kill an enemy, or at least a human enemy with this, there is a chance that they will have extra med packs on them. That's pretty decent, especially if you get this early on, because you can join the UC Vanguard super early, do most of the quests, get this pistol, and then be using it throughout the rest of the game, or at least throughout a decent portion of the game, get you a couple free med packs. I think this is only med packs. I don't think this counts for trauma packs or emergency med packs. But still, extra med packs is still a straight bonus because I use them more often than anything else in this game. So that brings us to the question, should you be using the Old Earth pistol, the 1911? And maybe. I would say probably once you get it right away, because you're probably going to have some extra rounds of 45 laying around. It's a pretty decent gun. It does pretty good damage per second. If you're going with a handguns build, it's going to even be better than this. If you're not going with a handguns build, it's still a decent handgun overall. It's still a decent firearm if you just want to use it at close range to spam fire at enemies. You're probably going to ditch it later on for the 2311 because that one's just kind of a straight upgrade to this one, assuming that you just don't like the look of it. Which, I mean, fair. It is a 1911. It looks pretty iconic. So tell me your thoughts on the 1911 down in the comments below. How do you enjoy it? Have you been using it? Do you like it? Where would you put it on the tier list? And thank you guys so very much for watching this. I really do appreciate it. You guys take care and have a great rest of your day. Bye-bye, everyone.